Welcome to another episode of Fun with Linux. So, I thought I would go over and show you guys some of my shell scripts that I've written, and they're almost always related to Arch Linux, but I recently wrote something that has to do with GNOME. Now, I'm not a bash programmer by any means, but I like to write scripts that do things for me, and I'm sure that you guys would have tons of commentary on what you do with your bash scripts, but this is the basic things that I do with it. My big one is Arch setup script. So basically what I do is when I install Arch Linux, and let me get it. When I install Arch Linux, I just install the base. I don't install anything else, just enough to get it to boot from the hard drive. So this is my Arch script. So as you can see, I have a script order, and this is just so that I know how everything works. It's like I said, I'm not a bash programmer by any means. I just know a little bit of how everything works. So I have it get an essential file, and the essential file is basically just all the other scripts, because it's super annoying to have wget every little thing, so you can just have it get through that, but that's not important. And this is just a little comment saying that I have to run it as root. And, people are afraid of running things as root, and they should be, because it's not a smart thing to do, but when you get an Arch install, there's pretty much not anything there. So this just makes sure that I have Network Manager working, install sudo, and it also reinstalls base devel in case I forget to install it. And a no confirm, because I hate pressing the yes button while I'm doing stuff. This forces me to set up sudo, and then this I have a pre-configured pacman.conf with the repository added to get Yort and other repos that I use, and this just gets it. And by the way, the reason I love Dropbox is just because you can literally use it as like a GitHub or something. So I go in and I delete the stock pacman, and I just wget mine and then sync it, and then this basically just installs the basic X server stuff and then my most used programs, and then we go to the user setup. Now, there are tons of these, and the only real way I could show you guys how to do this, the only real way I could show you all of these is if I quick do these. But user setup, and I'm not going to go over every single script in this main script, but it's a big script. This just adds the user to everything, and then it sets a host name, and then I also have one that installs Yort, and it drops it from root to the created user, and then it goes to the Yort thing, which is just basically my most used AUR programs. I prefer Packer, so I use that. I get Chromium Pepperflash just in case I need to use Chromium. I don't ever use Chromium, but in case I need it, OpenSteamWorks. I use VocoScreen for a backup recorder. The GTK theme I prefer, the icon theme I prefer. Basically, the idea here is to make it so that I don't have to do anything when I install Arch. I basically just run this script, and I select a couple things. My favorite part of the script, though, is the desktop ones. So the way this works is most people would create a selection menu with arrows and stuff. I actually don't do that. I just use the read function in Bash, and it's super useful. So you can just have a user input the name of something, and it'll echo, like, what do you want? GNOME, KDE, Cinnamon, LXQT, or whatever. And it will read this as a variable, like the input. Like if I entered GNOME, it would store GNOME inside desktop, and then it would call bash desktop. And the cool thing about that is if we do I can do that, but basically every desktop is named in lowercase after the desktop, so it's gnome.sh, kde.sh, and so on. So when this is called this, it literally just calls whatever one you select. So that's my Arch script. My recent script that I wrote when I have to use Antergos when I want to just get stuff going, I have a script that makes it so it's not terrible, because if you've ever used Antergos, it just looks really gross, and I hate the way it looks, I hate the way it works. So what I use is a little script that I like to call Antergos fix. And what Antergos fix does is it disables their light DM crap. It gets LXDM, and I use LXDM with GNOME because GDM is known to break easily on Arch. So, and then I have it force enabled just in case there's a problem, and I get my grub configuration, which is actually something that more people should do, because if you ever see the default Antergos grub theme, it's just completely garbage. So what this will do is it'll go out and it'll wget my uncommented, unthemed, normal grub, and it will also detect any dual boots from other hard drives. It'll compile all my AUR stuff, it'll install my most used programs, and it will, now it also wgets my extensions for GNOME, which is something that I've been working on, which I want to show you guys. And it also sets up my preferred shell, which you guys must have figured out is Fish, and the reason I love Fish is this reason. It remembers stuff, and it's not like the bash thing we have to press tab, it literally shows up as it goes, and there's system highlighting and stuff. But this is my new script that I wrote, and I'm super excited about it. And what this does is I have a copy of all of my GNOME extensions. All the extensions I use, like Open Weather, Caffeine, the audio thing that you can't see right now. I have a dual monitor, you can't see it, but I have a extension that I found on GitHub that lets you have the same taskbar on both monitors. And what this basically does, it just goes out and it gets my archive, it extracts the archive, it goes to the GNOME location, and because when you install GNOME, you only get the stock extension, so there's none in the folder, makes the folder, goes back to root, copy, or goes back to the home folder, copies the extensions out of the archive in here, and then it reminds me, because I often forget, to go into dconf editor and disable the extension version checking so that my extensions don't break, and that's actually a thing you can do. So I write bash scripts just to make my life easier, and there's one more that isn't really that impressive, but it's one that I use all the time, and I run this on my server. I just copied it over just so you guys could see it. But basically, if I'm out and about and I follow some people on YouTube who maybe upload a long video, but they don't do podcasts, they don't have a podcast feed. So what I can do is I can just open up SSH on my phone, run this on my server, and what it'll do, it'll be like preparing, and then it'll move to the right directory. It'll say, hey, what's the YouTube URL? Then it'll serve it into YT URL and export it. And then the command will call the URL, and it will run it as an audio rip. And it'll just rip it as MP3, and it'll show up. This is a modified script, but it usually goes to like the download folder in my Apache server. And then from there, I can add it to my custom RSS feed and my podcast app, and I can just set it, and it will download as a regular podcast, and I can enjoy the YouTuber's content as if it was a regular podcast. Super useful. So these are all my bash scripts, guys. A little different than normal Fun with Linux episodes, but it's been a while and I wanted to make something. Please also watch the update video, because I talk a little bit about what I should do with the series, what I should do on this channel, and I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Thanks for the love for the Chromebook video, and I will see you when I see you.